all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Nikki.
Hola! Hola! Marano Kona, hola!
Hello.
Today from Make the Shiny Set Out on WCCR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. No longer freedomslips.com. If you're trying to go to freedomslips.com, it'll go nowhere. I've told a few of our listeners, they've asked me about it. It is actually revolution.radio. Just that's the only domain you have to worry about.
That's the one.
Revolution.radio. It's all good. So we're still here, right? It's all good. Now, we are home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room and a place to get your merch. This is show number 572.
Correct.
270 and 500. We're just a few shy of 600. And then it's just a few more for 1,000. Well, it's going to be a little bit longer. Catch us on air on...
1, 2, skip a few. 1,000.
1,000. 1,000. Catch us on here online on your smart device to grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Gray's tabletop digital radio.
Indeed.
If you missed Solaris' show, that's okay. That's okay. You can always catch her on the archives, which are free, by the way. The archives are completely free. I did miss it. I was preparing some show notes earlier today. Actually, 2 sets. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, but just go into the archives and you can listen to her show there, which is awesome. But importantly, this is listener-funded radio, which means we need your money, your kindness, your consideration to keep the station running. Now, if you don't have, any money yourself, that's okay. You can tell your friends and family to listen, and maybe they like it, and maybe they will donate. The more people listen, the higher the likelihood is that somebody can donate. It's the old salesperson's idiom, or approach. Every no gets you closer to a yes. So the more people you tell, the more likely it is that somebody can donate, and any donation will do. Right? Could be fiat currency, could be gold, silver, not chickens, but Bitcoin, any cryptocurrency really, money orders, etc., etc. We'll take it all to keep those electrons spinning crazily through the ether. But before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. Dave?
It's the home to the Darkinjung people.
Thank you very much. And I myself am broadcasting from Darak country. And we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. I don't even know where to begin, man. It's just, I'm just, so yeah, sorry, Dave. Two show cycles we're gonna do. Today we're gonna talk about Nazis and the occult. There's a bit of an update to that. Not massively, but we did it 5 years ago the last time. And looking at where the world is, we're going to talk about that in a moment, I'm sure. I think it's high time that we looked again at what happened and how it happened and what it all meant and what the underlying motives were as well. And then, of course, we're going to work on a media ownership show cycle. Because a lot of people believe, Dave, that it doesn't really matter anymore who owns the media because there's so much other media available, like the internet and blogging and citizen reporters, etc., etc. So it doesn't matter. Well, not entirely true, because it is now completely anarchistic out there, and it has become incredibly harder to determine what is what, especially with information coming from the internet. And you really have to look at your sources here. You really have to trust people. And I do believe, Dave, that there's still true journalists and reporters out there that are trying to do a job, telling us what's what. I do believe that's the case, right?
Well, the 3 of them around the world are doing a stunning job.
Yeah.
Well, the 3 of them.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Because I think most of the rest are tear-offs, and no one really cares for real news, unless it's just a directive from the government to put this story out with this kind of slant.
There's that, absolutely. Look, How have you been, though? Tell us how you feel.
Oh, to be honest, my knee's sore from where I hurt it before Christmas, and I've got 2 broken bones in my left foot, which is just suck it up and get it done. Get your job done during the day. Becky, there was something about the medical fraternity which I used to trust, trust and love. Oh my goodness. Just maybe a little less than I love the AI, but
it's tough love, right? That's what it's tough love.
Yeah, well, the medical fraternity, they made remarkable progress with my daughter, but I had an X-ray done, and the report from, I think, the work experience kid, I won't name who it was, right? It said, there's no break. And then I looked at the second image, and I could see a diagonal break through the bone, and it was displaced, right?
Oh, jeez.
And it's a bit of the top-down view looked kind of normal, right? And then the second image, which they never looked at, I showed the break, and I showed it to my GP, and I go, look, the report says nothing, right? But here, look, you tell me, what does that look like? He goes, looks like a break. He goes, when was that taken? I said, that's the same thing that they reported on. Oh, right. And then they said there was nothing wrong with my knee, just some bruising. And I go, wow, that's really tough bruising from last year, December. What's that? 4 months now, right? And I go, if it's the same person, I'm really, let's say I've got less faith in them now. And so then they ordered a CT to have a look to see what they could see what else was wrong, right? But it was an MRI.
Go back then. Is the leg going to grow back? The tiger took my leg.
What's your point?
Go back, right?
What's your point? You're right. I love that, the prodding with the pipe.
I mean, you take these images, the MRI scans, X-rays, doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
Ultrasounds.
Yeah.
For a reason. It's like,
it cost me $320 for the MRI.
Yeah, and then they tell you what's wrong, hopefully, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, nobody looks at them, Dave. If no one looks at them, then it's really not going to do you any good. My advice to you is, because you're at fault, clearly, is you didn't look at it. You should have looked at it, not some, esoteric doctor person, that may or may not exist. You should have looked at it and said, oh, look, I've got a broken something or other. Or that it looks like a piece of bone is separated from the rest of the bone.
That's right.
Let's call it a bone separation. It's your fault.
It is completely my fault. And look, all day today in the sun, I fought with 2 of my friends to put an aftermarket front spoiler on my car, which is from the V8 supercar team from 20 years ago. Right? And it's meant to just bolt on. Right? That's what it's meant to do. And we fought all day and got the front one on. Couldn't get the rear one.
Good fight, right?
It's pleasurable, I suppose, to a certain extent. More better outcome is more pleasurable. Ending up at a stalemate, we've run, had a boy, right? Getting angry at the thing you're trying to put on, which is meant to just bolt up, but it doesn't for some reason. That's funny to me, right? Like, if anyone is a car person and they buy something that's just meant to be a complete bolt-on and it just never bolts on, or there's, missing parts, or it's not the right shape and you're going to do modding to it, that is funny. And that's like engineering challenges to make it work. Right? So, look, I had a great weekend from an engineering challenging perspective. But, the media and the news stories and what there is and isn't there anymore. And, it's crazy. Mickey, how was yours?
I'm angry.
Angry? Why are you
angry? I'm angry. Because this is the thing, right? You just segued me nicely into a thank you. And look, full disclosure, we had a conversation before the show. And hey, Your Honor, hello. And Casey Sledge, hello. And Lavender Streams, Mace139, Gear Jammer, Flippy. Good to see you all there.
And I can see Mickey in there too.
Now, it's a couple of things. The first thing I want to bring out here is really concerning me, right?
What's that?
Israel recently elected the most right-wing government they've ever had. I mean, it's their right to do that. I mean, they can elect whoever they want, or whatever. No one is saying it was any rigging or anything went wrong with the election. People just decided, now this is who we want. And in fact, well, it's not really who the people wanted, but the coalition that was formed to bring about a government that works was, just happened to be extremely right-wing in the end. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What is the problem, though, that Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, the new...
Is he back in again?
He's in like flame. He's got a couple of corruption trials running, but hey, that never stopped anyone. But what he's done now, and this is important, and I couldn't believe it, he's looking to pass legislation that will let him override any high court ruling that he doesn't like.
This is part of his legal overhaul plans, isn't it?
That's it, which essentially means I am going to be deciding what's what, and everybody else can do something else. Okay, so I'll see you all later.
So during his speech, I'm making this up for comedy purposes only. They've said, "What do you want to do?" And he says, "Huzzah!" and it's on video. I'm only making this up, and then after he's doing this legal overhaul plan, it's like, but what do you think you're a czar? And he goes, "That was in my pitch. I want to be czar of the entire country. Well, maybe the world, but I'll start here. And I want all the plans. I want all the ruling, and no more. None of this getting tied up in the courts and tied up in Senate. I don't want that.
Just a big time waster."
Yeah. How are you supposed to get things done when people keep going on against you, right? Fighting against you.
I mean, who needs that, right? I mean, you don't need that kind of distraction if you're making, decisions about how rich you're going to be, right? And the answer is very rich. We're going to be very rich.
Did you know, Mekki, that they've been protesting for 9 weeks?
Yeah.
9 weeks? Have you seen any of this in the news, anyone? Anyone?
No. No need. What are you doing? Oh, come on. It's just be nice. No, but the problem is that in our system in the world, we've got a separation of the powers, right? You've got a separation. So and usually the judiciary, the people that interpret the laws, right, that are made by some other body, okay, they are not influenced by the people that made the laws in the first place. They just said, "Here's the law. You guys now go ahead and interpret it." Now he wants to do away with it. Now this comes hot on the heels of Donald Trump having expressed at least wanting to abolish the Constitution. It comes hot on the heels of an unprecedented third term for Xi Jinping. I mean, we don't have to talk about North Korea. That's dictatorship. That's no longer a dictatorship or authoritarian or autocracy. This is now a kingdom. It's a kingdom of North Korea, which now has a dynastic line. Okay, I don't care what you call it. It's a kingdom.
Now you're going. Now that's the spirit, right?
That's what it is. Now they're bringing in the sister, bringing in the daughter.
Dynasty land.
It is because his father was in judge.
Dynastasia. That sounds like a disease, really, doesn't
it? Putin also is going to be in charge until the end of time, and
Dynactica.
And in fact. Netanyahu has been in and out of power over the last 30-odd years because he was in power when I was at university many years ago.
He's still going.
He's still going. So the point here is this, right? We have, maybe not so much quietly, slipped into a world that is moving closer and closer to, back into kingship and queenship, if you will, where we are no longer even pretending at democracy. No, democracy didn't work. And look, I honestly don't think democracy works the way we have it. It doesn't work anyway. So, it's not a great loss as far as I'm concerned. What we have to be careful, though, of that is that we do not undermine the rule of law. Now, again, even that isn't working well because there's this a set of laws that apply to you and me, and there's different rules that apply for the uber rich,
mm-hmm.
the parasites. In fact, the real parasites you don't even see. They're not even touched by any of this. So that's where you are. You have these layers of power, right, that are becoming more and more visible to everybody, though, right? Because it takes a lot of guts to go out and say, now look, let's abolish the Constitution, or let's do away with the judiciary, right? Or no, let's not do away with. But if they say something I don't like, I can just overrule it. Now that's what Hitler did. Eventually, they all just said what he wanted. It saved a lot of time. It
saves a lot of arguments if you just agree with the boss all the time, right?
It was so much easier. And it's really interesting how this is developing, right? Especially from a Great Reset point of view, because we are sliding into a war steadily. Now, here's the kicker. And now I want you to think about this, Dave, right? What do you think is going to happen if Donald Trump were to run and then were to win the coming election in the United States? What would happen to the war in Ukraine? Because he was very clear in his speech that he had no interest in supporting any foreign activities, right?
I would imagine that he would pull all the troops from everywhere in the world and just be damned, that's your war, not ours, right?
Yeah.
The amount of money that's flowing, so what are we, 2 billion or 2.5 billion already going between the US and that's all pledge money, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, they're big numbers. For the US, maybe they're not as big as they would be if they were here, but, still, it's a lot of money. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think that Donald Trump would cease that. But see, the big issue with the current conflict that's being advertised within our realm, the West's realm, is if they are successful, they might very well take Poland too. All right, and that's kind of the big worry, because then it's NATO, right? And then we have, some global issues, and America would get sucked into that so fast, into the NATO conflict, and then it's kind of there's only one game then, right? Now, this is what the military commentators are talking about in regards to the future threat of this conflict. As long as it can be contained within Ukraine and everyone plays by the rules, then it shouldn't extend outside of that, and we're all going to be safe. That's hence why all of the money is getting poured into Ukraine.
Yeah.
Now, I'm out there talking to people on the RT network, and I'm voicing my opinion. My opinion is, and it still is, and it will always remain, to antagonize the people who are supporting the war from a Russian perspective, able to gain the reasoning behind it, what the media is telling them, because you can hear it, it's obvious in their replies. And it was initially all about the Nazis. They were going in there to kill Nazis, right? That was what Russia was doing. That's what they told their people they were going to do. I know it's crazy, right? But that's their messaging. And now it's about LGBTQ plus. They're wiping them out now, because that's their whole country is filled with that. But the people are still saying, well, it was built by the Soviets and it's our land. And that's the overall picture of, I don't care what the government's saying, despite this is what we're doing. And we've kind of agreed that that's how the messaging is, and we supported that. Well, we didn't support it. We just didn't go against it. But now the messaging is about the LGBTQ+, where they're now fighting those people. And they believe that annexing other parts of other people's countries is fine. But when I said this, Mickey, I said, well, what if someone on another one of your borders decided to go into a town, topple the local government, put in their own person, have a referendum, and it became, I don't know, Italy, right? So the Italians decided that it was theirs. What if someone did it to Russia instead? How would you feel about it? And they said, well, it's never going to happen. It's a moot point, right? I said, it's not whether it's going to happen. In this scenario, it's a make-believe scenario. How would you feel? And they were incapable of accepting that even the scenario was real. Now, this is kind of that, I'm being polite, that staunch Russian belief that they are an ever-growing colony that just needs to expand into territory that they used to own. And that's it. And that's the basis of it. Now, I'm sure you're going to enlighten me with further conversation, but the people believe this. Like, it's no different than, with Iraq, if you ask people on the ground then, we're going in for weapons of mass destruction. And of course, they didn't find any. And then they moved back out again. But no one took the land. It wasn't our land. It wasn't a land grab. Yeah. So I try to tell people and make these distinctions, and it seems that no Russian wants to hear these distinctions. I tried. I still like the playful nature of my antics.
Look, you're right. Both China and Russia have been practicing continental colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning they just expand. They just go plop, and then they just drop, expand, and they don't go. It's not satellite colonialism like the French, the British, and most Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. If the Chinese had done that, I mean, they could have tried to colonize Europe and Australia.
That's right.
But that didn't happen. So the Chinese, just like the Russians, they've got Asia is a massive continent, and it sort of hooks into Europe directly into Africa, so you can just expand on the land. It's easier than going by sea.
Yeah,
more or less.
If the Himalayas weren't there, Mackie, it'd be different.
Well, it would have made things easier for certain parties. And that's what Russia. So Russia already is the largest country in the world by landmass. It's massive. It's huge. A lot of it is wilderness. A lot of it is quite rugged terrain. Where in Australia everything is desert, over there everything is tundra and frozen, and not so frozen anymore. But it's not hospitable country. And in Russia created this during the Cold War this buffer. The Warsaw Pact countries, Eastern European countries that were.
That takes me back.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of the block against the West. America did the same with most of Europe, in Western Europe anyway. That's our block. And now Putin, who grew up in the Soviet Union, you have to remember that. He grew up in the Soviet Union. He saw what he had thought was a powerful Russian empire, right? Squaring off against a powerful American empire, and both empires aren't really that powerful anymore. But he wants that back. He doesn't want the USSR back. He wants Russia to be a powerful player again. Mm-hmm. Now we have seen now that narrative is not really working out for him, because he can't even conquer the Ukraine. Now bear in mind, Ukraine had no help from the West when he attacked. Okay, for the first couple of weeks, even couple of months, there was just the Ukrainians holding him off. Okay. So they thought, let's go in on the weekend. It's going to be a weekend war, a little military action, boom, Ukraine is ours. It didn't happen that way. Now, you can blame poor planning or, overconfidence. It doesn't really matter what you put it down to.
Where are those generals now? Oh, they're dead.
Well, they're no longer with us. Yes, they might have fallen out of the windows. But this is...
That's right. That's their style. That is
the Russian defenestration epidemic. And So what we're having here now is this need to further go ahead and it can't change course. That's my point. It's like Hitler. I'm not saying Putin is Hitler, but Hitler had no choice but to pursue his policy to the end. Because there was no election coming his way. He was dictator for life, essentially, right? Like Putin is now. Mm-hmm. It's not like, I mean, his enemies in the battlefields, they were mostly elected people, right? They might be in power again, they might not be. I mean, not every person saw the war. Not the French one, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
One started it, or was in it, but then another one saw it out. Whereas Hitler was there for the long haul. Putin is going to be here for the long haul, right? And you can't change tact anymore. Right up until the end, he couldn't. And I'm not saying that Russia's going to fall to the Ukraine, but it's just not looking terribly good for Russia overall as an international player. They need the Chinese now. I need Chinese help. Come on, help me here. I need a whole bunch of other help. India abstained from a vote in the recent G20 summit. That's hilarious. I mean, a whole bunch of other countries abstained as well. Fair enough, right? I mean, Russia's got close ties to other countries other than Western countries, I mean, right? It's a reality as well, but he's just not doing well. He's not as powerful as he thinks, or as he may have made himself believe he was. So that's sort of parked to the side now, right? So we need to see how that develops further. I see this war as, and I think it may come, is perfect to usher in a new age. And again, you need a catalyst. Every time we saw significant changes in the way the world works, there was a catalyst. And usually the catalyst was a war. Could have been a natural catastrophe as well.
That's
could
right.
have been disease, right? So all these things have happened, right? Sometimes it was a person, right, that brought about change. Not often, but once in a while, it's just a single person. So what we're seeing here now is there's a whole bunch of stuff happening in the world, and it's really hard to make sense of, and you don't even know what to believe anymore. I mean, is it true that there were Nazi emblems in the Ukrainian forces? Yes, that is true. Do you understand the background of it? Probably not. This was in the largely in the East, where they've been fighting since I think 2014. And these were regular people, and you had to motivate them somehow. So they invented their own mythology, and it's sort of harkened back, to some of the Nazi symbolism, etc., to form unity and give themselves a group identity. And war never really brings out the best in people. Okay, it just doesn't. You can believe that if you like, but that's just not the case. So I'm not sure how long this will take or what shape this is going to take. If it is still going on when the American election is happening, then it'll be decided by who becomes president next.
Yeah, that'll be the
because
next
if it hadn't been for Joe Biden in the White House, I don't think the NATO allies would have rallied behind Ukraine the way they did. Right? So you can say what you want. I think that was a very clear message that Joe Biden said. Joe Biden said, we are back on the international stage. Donald Trump wasn't really interested. I can't blame him. I mean, Americans have never really been that interested, prior to World War II.
That's right.
Right? I mean, the Monroe Doctrine, you had that. You had Wilson, Woodrow, that is, not wanting to join the League of Nations, etc., etc. So, they never really did that keen on it.
But right now, we're basically all the big powers have signed out of abandoned the nuclear non-proliferation agreements. No one's in it anymore. Like, it's sitting there with no parties.
Yeah. Now, is this a threat still? It really depends, Dave. It depends how desperate people become, because now we don't see, this is important to understand. In the Cold War, we had some fundamentally different worldviews at odds with each other. Yeah. Or supposedly different worldviews, right? So you had communism on one side, right? The Red Menace, and you had capitalism, the evil money people on the other side, right? Those were the two camps in the world. I mean, there are other camps, but those were the main ones.
Yeah.
but you could really hang your head on it.
Mm-hmm.
You could really believe it if you wanted to, right? Oh, I believe in freedom and free markets and trickle-down economics and the Harvard business model of the world, and you would be wrong because it was all nonsense. But nonetheless, that's what people believed. And the communists equally said, no, we want to free the people. We want to free them from the yoke of the capitalists. Everybody should be treated equally, and we should all live together. Kumbaya, hurrah, hurrah. Now, that also is a nonsense.
All be treated equally poorly. Yes.
Fully, that's correct. That was also nonsense, simply because people are people. And some animals are more equal than others.
That's right.
But at least there were ideologies, right? So you say, okay, I'm a communist and I'm a capitalist, and East versus West. It was very easy, Dave. It was almost cartoonish.
That's right.
In its simplicity, right?
Because they were polar opposites.
Yeah, 100%. Now though, I mean, what does Russia stand for? In fact, what does America really? We talk about democracy and freedom. That's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
America has fought more wars than Russia. It's true. Wars of aggression, and in fact,
except for 1 year, it was pretty much been in some kind of conflict in the globe.
Yeah, except during the reign of Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Donald Trump didn't go to war, and he's right in that. I didn't go to war, and kudos, my friend. He did not go to war. But the thing is this, and America even went to war on completely false and made up premises.
That's right. So, just like Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no moral high ground anymore. You can't really say, not with pure conviction.
Not with your hand on the Bible, you can't.
Yeah, you I don't care. You can't say I believe I stand for this, and on the other side you can't say I stand for this, because Russia's no longer communist.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. It's an autocratic. Well, it's a free market economy, more or less.
That's right, free market capitalism.
Yes, kind of. I mean, it's an oligarchy, really, right? But
that's true.
You could argue so is America. So
yes.
So there's no. So who is fighting who here? This has gone back to nation states, but you know what? Not even. Because back in the day of the nation states, and I remember this because my grandfather told me, right? And then I interviewed a lot of people as a high school project in Germany, people that had seen World War I. And it was fascinating because, you know what, they said, when World War I came along, they were young, young teenagers and whatnot. And when I interviewed them, they were probably in their 70s and early 80s. And they said, people were, really excited to see the troops marching off to fight the French again. Yeah, we're going to show them. It's like almost like a football match.
Yeah.
These days. We're going to fight, St. Kilda, and we're going to win by 5 goals or whatever people say in sports circles. I don't know. So, and that's the sentiment, because people had this strong national pride, this national identity, right? The French, the Germans, the British, the Russians, everybody had it.
Oh yeah.
I'm this, I'm that. I'm not that. I'm something else. I'm better than you, so I can go to war with you, and I'll make you better by defeating you. But okay, so and that sort of is gone now. That's gone. In fact, it started waning soon after World War I, when we became more globalist, right? The League of Nations. We have to think globally. We have to avoid the next big war by being globalist. We have to,
I suppose that was the big first step out of our country's sovereignty.
Completely. Let's leave that behind. And then World War II came along, and you had very strong ideologies fighting each other again. It was great. You had fascism and freedom.
Yep.
You're fighting fascism, evildoers on the one side, and freedom and the right way and the American apple pie on the other side, right? And that's what happened. And in Japan, it's an autocracy, and not really fascist, really, but still. It was you could hang your head on something. I'm this, I'm that, and I'm not this. So I'm fighting that. Got it. And it was a very strong belief. And then again, like I said, during the Cold War after World War II, you had a very polarized world, communism versus capitalism, East versus West. It was easy to understand. But today, it no longer exists. It's about people now. I have to say, in my final analysis on the situation, this is driven by people. And I'll tell you why. Because if Joe Biden hadn't been in the White House, if Donald Trump had been in the White House, the American people would not have sent that money to the Ukraine.
That's right.
They wouldn't. They might have wanted to, but Trump would have said, no, not my problem. Fair enough, too. It isn't his problem, right? It's not, because Ukraine is not a NATO member.
Think about how many bridges you could fix with $2 billion.
Well, that's it, right? So, but Biden was in the White House. So it was driven by Biden. The war on the Ukraine, it's not because Russia has this grudge against the Ukraine and this resentment's been building over years. No, not at all. They even speak the same language. Well, it's like Irish English and American English.
That's right.
That's the difference between Ukrainians and Russians. But it's not. I mean, the Russians don't really. Well, I don't care. I don't want to attack the Ukraine. Why would I? No, Putin wants to attack the Ukraine, and Xi Jinping wants to help Putin. Okay, and Modi wants to be neutral in this whole thing.
Yeah,
this is people-driven politics now, not nation state, not ideologies. These are now people's interests. This is where people. I mean, you could argue, well, they were elected. Well, not all of them, clearly. You could argue, but were they? The majority of in each country that I just mentioned, the majority of the people did not elect the people that are in power. Right? Either because they don't have elections, or because of some other flaw in the system. Okay? So let's be clear: the majority of Americans didn't elect Joe Biden. Okay? There's a split. I mean, because the majority, I'm talking like 60, 70, 80%. That's in my mind, that's a majority, not 2%.
Yep.
Right? Not 1%. So there's a split. And Putin, I don't know when the last election was. In fact, he's given him an office that he never can be kicked out of, which is fantastic. So it is people driven. And then again, North Korean, Kim Il-jong, or whatever his name is.
Kim Jong-il.
Kim Jong-il, thank you. I always get it mixed up. But the point is, they're not. I mean, you talk about North Korea, but you really mean Kim Jong-il. That's what you really mean.
That's right.
And you talk about Russia, but you really mean Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you talk about Ukraine, but you really mean Zelensky.
That's right.
So that is where we are. We are in a people-driven world, and that probably reflects best what actually happens in the world. Because the decisions are down to very few people that affect your lives, right? So I find it endlessly fascinating, I have to say. It's just... But there's a couple other things, Dave. Sorry to steer this in another way, but please, I'll give you the closing comments on that topic if you like.
No.
Okay, done. No, but you know what? Really, there's some really interesting stuff that happened on the global stage. I'm going to start with Julian Sands.
Yes. Julian
Sands. He played the Warlock in Warlock 1 and 2. He was in a number of other movies. A pretty famous actor living in Hollywood. Disappeared on a walk. Disappeared. Gone. Just disappeared. Where?
Mount Baldy.
We don't know. Yeah, no. Sorry. Yes, correct. But
that's where he disappeared. I could see Mount Baldy from where I lived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I lived there.
Is there anything around Mount Baldy where people are disappearing? Is it a known?
It's probably another 411.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going with that, right? But because he hasn't been found, and apparently, I mean, he's quite the accomplished hiker as well. He seems to be in good health, etc., etc. And I mean, there's no trouble in his life, as it were. But the point is, he just disappeared, and now you don't hear anything about it anymore because people don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, so what do we do? Well, we still need to understand what happened, right? But no one is talking about it. Right. So that's definitely, in my book, that's a 411. Right. But he's a prominent player. So if they went in there and investigated and just came out shaking their heads, that would make some serious waves. And that brings me to my point. And I will illustrate my point with another example in a second. If you want to kill a story today, you don't have to kill it. You just put other stories up that are more interesting.
Yeah, there's only room for 5 stories a day.
There's only room. It's 5 if you're lucky, because it's our attention span is no longer what it was. We don't follow activities anymore like we used to, or stories like we used to. We just don't. And what we have now is so Julian Sands gone missing. Well, that's no longer interesting. Okay. another story that has completely disappeared, right? Not the Malaysia flight. I mean, that's another one that I'm really worried about. No, this is the story about the 4 things that were shot down by the American military a few weeks ago. So one we know for a fact was a Chinese weather spy whatever balloon. Now, it boggles the mind why the Chinese would send a balloon when they all have satellites pointing at each other at every possible angle at all hours of the day. But whatever, let's just go with it. Okay? So it's a spy balloon, there it is, shot down. And then there were 3 or 4 other objects, smaller in size, but still size of a car thereabouts, that were also shot down. Now, near the Arctic Circle, I think one fell in Lake Huron, if I'm not mistaken. One fell closer to the Arctic Circle. So they fell into fairly inaccessible territory in water as well as far as we know. But there hasn't been a peep.
The last thing we heard was there were helicopters on the way to examine the wreckage.
Yeah. And then,
whoosh,
radio silence. Now,
it's deafening.
Yeah. What happened now is that we are consumed by another story, which makes no sense at all. It's just interesting and sensational because, people like true crime, and it's got a powerful family, that has generational wealth, that lives on a massive estate, and there were power brokers, and there was drugs involved, or drug addiction, and murder, and embezzlement in the millions, and it makes no sense. So I looked. I'm talking about the Murdoch trial. He was just, yeah, that's right. He's just been sentenced to 2 life sentences, I understand, for the double murder of his wife and his son. Now, his family thinks he's innocent. He claims he's innocent, meaning, yes, he embezzled money, and yes, he's, I think, a drug addict. But no, I did not kill my wife, and I did not kill my son. So why did he kill them? Well, apparently his wife was looking to get divorced. There was money trouble. And maybe he heard about it. Maybe you could make it a crime of passion, but that's not the way they're going. It wasn't a crime of passion at all. So why did he kill his son? Now apparently,
go ahead.
He killed. Apparently, he killed his son, his elder son, and his wife because he wanted to elicit sympathy from the courts or the justice system, that were trying him for embezzlement or whatever, and sort of direct attention that way. Now, how that would work in the real world, I don't understand. So even let's say you're on trial for stealing $5 million. I'm just making this up. So you're in trial. Okay, here you go. And then your family, you find that part of your family is shot dead. Right? You're still on trial for stealing $5 million. Whether or not your family just got killed really has no relevance, right? I mean, people might feel sorry for you, but it's not really, I don't think it's really going to sway an objective judgment here. I mean, did you steal the money? Yes. Did you steal the money because your family was killed? No. You stole it before your family was killed. Do I feel bad for you because your family was killed? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's a terrible thing. It shouldn't have happened. It should never happen to anyone, but it did. Sorry about that, but you stole $5 million. Right? So there's that. But apparently, in his mind, that's what would have happened. But he maintains his innocence. No, I didn't kill them. And then it gets stranger, right? Because his other son is still alive. There are 2 sons. Why did he not kill the other son too? He only killed the other one, and the other one that's still alive is his favorite. I don't understand. It makes no sense, but it has taken attention away from any other story that is out there because it makes no sense. I look at this story, and I don't understand it. Objective judgment is an interpretation of the law by law officials. Objective judgment. Or ideally it should be. I'm living in the past. Thanks, Yona. You're living in the past. Stop living in the past. No, but that's the point is,
living in the past, Marge.
If that's the motive, and he was convicted on that motive, then that's very thin. But apparently, no, that's not why he was convicted. He was convicted for the murder because he had been lying about something else. Well, so he was lying about something, it turned out. And therefore, he clearly is also lying about not killing his son and wife.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand that leap of logic. I'm a simple person, right? So this is a very strange, nonsensical case, but it really grabbed the headlines, right? Internationally. I mean, it's a murder trial in South Carolina. Who cares? Is Florida now? Where is it? Anyway, I think it's South Carolina. Who cares? I mean, interesting, but honestly, why does it make international headlines? But it did, because somebody wanted it to. Because what you see is controlled very tightly. Okay,
mm-hmm.
Very, very tightly. Someone wants this. Oh, look, Kim Kardashian has another implant. Hurrah! How very interesting. That's what you see. They only let you see what they want you to see. Because it's tightly controlled.
Yeah, so remember that the media has been implicit in portraying the government's messaging for years and years and years and years and years and years. Printed media, television media, they had their boon. It's come and gone. Now there is, algorithms that change what you see in your social media accounts, and they all line up. It's all lining up, Merky. It all does that. The thing to bury a good story is to just bring stupid stories to the top. Remember, there's no real journalism. Do you remember before that they would go in depth into like one of the most serious things in the news? They don't do that anymore.
Oh.
They read you the headlines, show you a little bit of depth, and then go to the sport. And then it's the weather, and then the news is done.
Look, there's a kitten. Oh, there's always a kitten. Hooray. But you're 100% correct, Dave. I mean, we have moved from information, right, to infotainment. It was a very gradual thing. It happened, right? And in fact, the thing is this. People say history is written by the victors. That's absolutely true. That's why we know nothing about Carthage except what the Romans tell us.
That's right.
But see, the news are what starts the ball rolling when it comes to write down history. That's because the stories that we all write down and archive and put into journals, put into books, that then form the fabric of our history. And not everything makes it. Not everything makes it. You'd be surprised how much history is forgotten. Now, when I say forgotten, there's a mainstream thread of education that teaches you what they think you need to know. So they teach you history in a certain way, and they can only teach you so much history. So they teach you what has been agreed upon. Here it is.
That's true. History,
right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that you just never, ever learn. You don't see it. You don't learn about it. You don't hear it. Right?
That's true.
It's just how it is. Right?
5 minutes.
And yeah, so if you are victorious in a conflict, let's take World War II. Easy example because it's obvious. The Allies won, and everybody drank Coca-Cola and watched My Uncle is a Martian in Germany after the war. If they're in the West, if they're in the East, they were making Trabants for the Russian market.
That was my favorite Martian, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's it. In German, it's called My Uncle. But yes, my favorite Martian. You're 100% correct in English. But we had it in Germany, right? Adapted everything, and that's really what you have. And Nazism was bad. Hitler was bad. Killed 6 million Jews and untold millions of homosexuals and gypsies, handicapped, communists, Freemasons, etc., etc., etc. Right? Millions and millions and millions.
Yeah.
If Hitler had won the war, and there have been some fantastic programs about this, TV shows as well as books, you would never hear about that. You would
That's
never.
right. Yes,
ever.
It's the Tiananmen Square effect, right? Yeah, none of that happened.
What are Jews? No. It's just a story. It's a scary story we used to tell our children. Jews. That's not Jews.
Ends up a nursery rhyme.
Right? So it really depends on who wins. Now, did the Americans do things that were questionable? Yes. But you don't really learn about it. Not really, right? And the things that we do learn about, they're released information, which means the stuff that we don't know about is much, much worse than the stuff they tell us about. Okay? So, because nobody focuses on what Hitler did for Germany after, the Depression, World War I, etc., right? He gave Germany purpose again. Now, I'm not saying Hitler was a wonderful person. We should all think, what a wonderful guy, and he should have stayed in power. But my point is, there's more to a person than just one side. Okay, did he start World War II? Yeah, it looks like he did. Right? Did he kill millions of people, or were they killed in his name? I don't think you can argue that either. Right? But he brought Germany back from the brink. Okay, he gave jobs to millions and millions and millions of Germans. Okay? He built up Germany again into a powerful nation. I mean, that's a pretty hefty achievement in anyone's book, right? But you don't dwell on that because you got to focus on the Holocaust, which is, by the way, another thing I need to get some more detail on, because Holocaust means burnt offering, to be clear, right? And I've got my own theories now around that as well. So I might actually mention it during the show cycle right now, but I need more research on that. So it's really a very sobering picture that we have. Because if you want to learn more history, you really have to start digging yourself. Because the books are still there. You can still find stuff, right? It's just not taught in mainstream. And if you have no interest in it, then you will never hear about it. So you've got a certain worldview, right? And a lot of people will have the same worldview. And that's how we end up where we are. Because nobody wants to know anything different. It's just too hard. Then you have to think for yourself. That's even harder. Oh, geez, you might have to start forming an opinion. And then you might even have to do something about that, Dave, once you form that opinion, because maybe the world isn't quite the way you want it to be, or maybe it's not the way that you were told it is.
That's right.
Seriously, it just goes downhill from here. It's all started with thinking for yourself. Stop that already. Don't think for yourself. Just take what they give you. Okay? Just let the hooks do their work.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. So, look, I suppose there's only 1 minute left. And I'll say, look, this is the end of the first hour of Dave and Meki's Shiny Side Out. This is episode 572. Top of the hour break is coming up in a minute. After the break, we'll be talking about the Third Reich and the occult. And we're at show numbers 572. And this was last aired in 298 and 311 is the distance in time back there. What is it, 5 years, Meki, you said?
Yeah, that's about right.
Wow, goodness me. So look, there's a short break coming up. And there's the music. Take the time to visit the powder room, I suppose, in one way. Don't forget, take time to donate, and we'll see you on the other side of this top of the hour in a new YouTube channel broadcast. All right, take care. I should say stay tuned.